Welcome to the Determined People podcast. We are dedicated to spreading encouragement, strength, and hope to a world that's in desperate need of it. Our guest today is Irina Alexander. Irina is an entrepreneur. She created multiple businesses, and she's also a Neuro-Linguistic Programming trainer. Now, I'm from a small town in Texas. Neuro-Linguistic is a challenge for me to say. I'm just going to call it NLP from now on. Irina built a $1 million business in a male-dominated industry in under 2 years. Within 2 years, she reached the top 1.6% of all woman-owned businesses in the United States. She's fluent in English, Mandarin, and her native Russian. Welcome to the show, Irina. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to do the interview in English today, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Let's start with growing up. What was life like growing up in Russia?
Fantastic. I was actually born in USSR. My birth certificate says USSR, the country that doesn't exist anymore. It became the USSR part that was Russia, and it became officially Russia in 94 when I was around 7. And honestly, I had a very great childhood. I was loved. I was raised in love. We had food on the table. So for me, I had only good and positive memories of my childhood.
Great. How did you end up in the United States of America?
Well, there is a cliche, but I married an American, and that's why I am here.
Met a guy in a bar, as I recall. Okay.
Yes, met a guy in a bar. We actually met in person, not like some stories where people meet online, which I believe it's great, especially now with all the technology. But there was a story why I mentioned that. When I was buying my first car, we were walking in a parking lot, and the salesperson said, "Let me guess where you met." And I was like, "Okay, sure, let's go do it." And she was like, "Internet." And I was like, no, not even close.
Not even an internet cafe.
Not even internet cafe. In a bar in China. That's how we met.
That's awesome. So what were your first impressions about the U.S. when you arrived?
Oh, my first impression that it's really felt like country. I landed in Houston, and back then my husband, we rented a house in Lampasas. Mm-hmm. So it was 3 or 4 hour drive back to Lampasas. And for me, it felt like forever. And there is you driving, and there is nothing. I mean, cows, there's trees, there's hardly any homes, there's no public transportation. And for me, it was like, wow, like, what am I doing here?
What have I done?
Yes, so that was my first impression. I remember on the way from the airport is like it's like in the middle of nowhere.
And so that Lampasas is sort of like in the middle of nowhere. Were you expecting to see oil rigs and cowboy hats and tumbleweeds?
Well, at least I expected to see something, and I didn't see anything, and that was kind of like, it was just honestly like I didn't see, other than cars, I didn't see any people, so to speak. So it kind of baffled my mind. Where is everybody?
How good was your English when you got to the U.S.?
It was better than my husband's Russian. I can tell you that. It was okay. I was able to communicate, and it wasn't perfect, and I believe it still not is. However, it was good enough to communicate and meet my needs, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you adjust to the Texan, let's just say, the Texas culture or the Texan words like, you know, we're fixing to do something, or chicken fried foods? I mean, did those confuse you?
You know, I kind of, when I moved here, I decided to take my I know hat off and experience everything with a child attitude of excitement and willingness to learn. Mm-hmm. I gave myself 3 years, honestly, to like, hey, let's see how it works, because it was completely new culture, new everything. And I was just like open-minded, and I didn't have any Russians in my surrounding, any community or anything. So I was only speaking English, and it was purposely done so I can be fluent in English and I can understand the culture better. So, I mean, there were, of course, things like that didn't make sense, fixing, we gonna, hey, you all, howdy, all of that. However, I had a great people around me who were helping me, and we actually had an agreement with my husband. He would always correct me when I speak wrong. And it irritates still to this day, irritates the hell out of me when he says something, but it improves my language. I know he means it in a good way, and we have an agreement. However, when you constantly oh, you did say that's wrong, and it irritates, however, it makes me better. And that was my way of becoming better and fluent and understanding your culture. However, I believe, and he agrees with me, that we are way more similar than a lot of people persuade, especially who likes to watch TV.
Yes, you're exactly right. Now, that was pretty brave of you to give him the green light to correct you. Mm-hmm. And then it's braver of him to actually follow through and do it. World wars have been caused by less than that.
He's a great guy, and it was for my benefit. I asked it because I wanted to be better, and that's the only way you learn, is to receiving everything as a feedback, and not that somebody tries to hurt you, and that's why they correct you. Yep. So I saw it as a way of improvement, and it's just a matter of perception, how you perceive it.
That's an awesome attitude. So tell our audience about the businesses you built.
Businesses I've built. The one in Russia, it was a woman boutique store, clothing store. Here in the United States, one of the largest is a heating and air conditioning company.
That is a male-dominated business.
It is. It is a male. So those were two big ones, I would say.
What made you choose heating and air conditioning?
It was a pure business decision. Honestly, we are in Texas. Everybody needs it, and we don't know what's going to happen with the economy. And we were looking for a business that is going to survive whatever going to happen. Especially here, if people don't have money, they're going to repair. If they do have money, they're going to replace older units and things like that. So it was a pure business decision of something that people always need.
And in Texas, you're right. Most of the year we need that. How did you learn that the HVAC business? I mean, the learning curve must be pretty steep, I'm thinking.
I worked on a business and not in a business, so to speak. So to this day, I still don't know how to fix AC. I know how to turn it on. I know a lot more than I knew back then when we started it. However, for me, it was sharing my vision, sharing my idea, hiring the right people, and building the company. And that's what I did. And, hire and surround yourself with the people that are more smarter than you are.
Sure.
So, and that's what I did, is that created the company with employees from day one. It wasn't that, hey, I'm doing the business and my husband fixing AC. It was a purely company where we started from ground zero and learned everything as we go.
That's great. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate from Scotland, the immigrant. One time somebody was interviewing him, and he said, I don't know anything about the manufacturing, production, mining, distribution of steel. And I said, well, what do you do? He said, I have people on my switchboard right here that I can call that know all those things. So, well, Mr. Carnegie, what do you do? He goes, I keep them all working together in harmony. What a great
Perfect.
way, just a bigger picture kind of a thing. But it's what you're describing here. Do you still have the HVAC business?
No, exited it in 2020, right before right before the crisis, so to speak.
Wow. How about the boutique in Russia?
Also sold it.
Mm-hmm. So now you're doing Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Would you explain what NLP programming is?
NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, is the science of your brain and the way you can model excellence. Simply put, is how people think, how you can reprogram thinking, and how you as a human being and other human beings can benefit from certain patterns that positively affect lives.
Mm-hmm. So in a training program, I'm not as familiar with the terminology, but in a training session, do you train multiple people at one time? Is it one-on-one?
As of training, overall, it's a group setting. Right now I'm doing a pure NLP, which is a 4-day, anywhere from 8 to 10-hour days. So where you getting completely immersed and reprogram yourself, learn to use tools for yourself, by yourself, and then apply it using with other people.
In those training sessions, group sessions, what kind of things come out of people? What do they share with you that maybe they didn't realize that they were going to, or maybe there's something repressed in there? Share some stories, if you will.
Yes, we are creating a very safe environment where people open up their deepest traumas sometimes come up, where, I work mostly with business owners and business coaches. However, when I was doing, pre-work, so to speak, and assisting, some of the things that would come up is, child abuse, physical, sexual, and it's all past trauma. Sometimes it's even genealogically passed through, family to family. And it definitely affects their current situation unconsciously, which means they are not realizing it, that it's something buried so deep down that affects their life. And when people heal that trauma, when they work through it, when they get their learnings from it, so to speak, and let it go, let that shit go, literally, then their life changes tremendously. I mean, one of the stories that a lady, she was taken away from her home, and she was raised, and she was physically, sexually abused till the age of 20. And then in her early 20s, I believe she had a ovarian cancer, and she was told that she will never be able to have kids. Fast forward through all of that, I just been with her on the phone a week ago. She has a 1-month-old baby. So through NLP, she healed herself, and she was able to get find the love of her life, get pregnant, and have a healthy baby boy.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So your work's gratifying in so many levels, to see a story like that and then see the impact that, you as the trainer, the conduit, if you will, to getting from here to there that is just wonderful. But you said something that I picked up on. People that have trauma, such as abuses, there's sometimes it's so buried deep down that they don't even realize what happened. They have like revelations of, oh my gosh, I was abused, sexually abused as a child. I've read where people will repress that to the point where it does affect and manifest in sometimes usually unhealthy ways. But are you saying people discover things in the NLP trainings that they go, just wow, I'd forgotten it?
Yes, there sometimes people suppress those memories, or something even that what happened in the mom's wound. They would go through certain tools and exercises. They would have a memory, and they would go to their parents and say, hey. And they said, yes, it actually did happen. So it's very powerful tools that can actually unbury those memories that caused for people behave certain way, so to speak, because we are working with the behavior and the root cause, because that's what we want to, not just, it's not just a talk therapy, so to speak.
Sure.
Because you talk over and over, and 20 years later, still going and seeing the same shrink, and, still not having the results you want for your life to change. We are actually working with the root cause where you get immediate results.
That is so important, hitting the root of it, pulling it out by the roots, not just, it's like if you're mowing your yard and you just mow over weeds, they're going to grow back. In fact, they're going to multiply. You don't even have to water them. They'll just multiply on their own. But if you pull the root out, that weed doesn't come back, but the healthy stuff continues to grow around it. Wow. How did you discover Neuro-Linguistic Programming?
How did I discover NLP? Originally, I was recommended by a friend of mine to read a book. It was in Russian, and I read it, and I was like, how am I going to apply it? Like, it didn't make sense. I mean, in theory, it was great. However, I am a person that likes things that actually make sense, and I can apply it in real life, not just those mystical things that you don't know how they're going to be useful. What can I do with it? And a year later, I discovered my trainers, and they were not advertising it as an LP, so I wasn't even sure. You know, it was something along the lines of a 3-day business accelerator course or something like that. And when I went there, and they told me that it's an LP, and I was like, now it kind of makes sense. So, you know, from day one after I left there, I already knew that I'm going to go all in. I wasn't planning on being a trainer. However, it just changed me so drastically that I decided I want to go all in. I want to know all about it as much as I can to improve my personal life, to become a better version of myself. So I did it purely egoistically for myself, and later on it turned to be, I found the need for other people to learn those tools as well. But originally it was just for me to be a better person, better mom, better employer. And if all I know now, I would have known years ago when I started my business, things would be so much easier for me. But, you know, everything happens for a reason.
But that's how you learn. But an important point here, Irina, is this. You already had built a successful career, and you didn't come from a traumatized childhood, so you didn't have any of those things, yet you still open up that door to learn more, how to be better. You're a good mom, you want to be an even better mom. You're a good wife, you want to be an even better wife. You're a good trainer, you want to be even better trainer. The fact that I always try to remind people, we've never arrived. Life truly is, it's a journey, or I use the word, it's a trip. Sometimes it's like an acid trip, but it's still a trip, right? And when we trip and fall, when we stumble, when we do things wrong, that is how we learn. A smart person doesn't keep doing those things. But sometimes due to patterns, we will continue to repeat the same things. What I'm hearing is correct, Neuro-Linguistic Programming helps remove some of those negative patterns that have been with you and not served you well for years.
Absolutely. For me, something I want to go back is during the course of me running my business, what I also realized that I was chasing money. And it was, I wouldn't say I had a commission breath, but I was motivated by money. All I wanted is money, money, money. And while I love money, and money is good, and they buy you comfort, but they don't make you happy. And you know, the cost of success for me was I was not happy. I was working too much. I hardly seen my kids. So there is another side of the story where while you look successful for everybody else, but, you know, how happy are you? And I wasn't. Something was missing. And in that race of chasing money, I realized that, hey, what do I really want? What am I here for? So, and NLP helped me to have that, like, hey, you are in a wrong path, and look within me to figure out what do I really want.
So what made you decide to go and become a trainer in NLP?
If I do something, I want to do it good, and I want to know everything, you know, is there to know. And the other thing is, thanks to my trainers, when I signed up for NLP, there are 3 levels. It's a practitioner level, then there is a master level, and then there is a trainer's level. Okay. So practitioner, masters, and trainers. And what my trainers, when they looked at me, when they saw me presenting, they came to me and say, hey, you can go straight to a trainer's level without a master, and then you can take master later, because they do masters only once a year. So because they saw something in me that I didn't even realize, it made me feel special. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah. So it's kind of like going to college without going to high school. And I was the only one in the whole class of about 20 people who didn't go to a master level and went straight to trainers. So trainers was extremely challenging and yet rewarding in so many ways. And I just, opened my mind what is possible and how I can serve others, implement it, and have a practical use of those tools in the business world, because that's what I'm passionate about, is business, helping people to grow their business, make sure they're working on a business, they are making money, and they have time and freedom to spend those money, not just working 24/7, 365 without being able to enjoy life. And NLP seems to me like a missing tool to open their mind that you don't have to hustle. You don't have to work hard. It's all between your ears, like you said. It's all in your head that you have to, because you've been programmed by your family, societies, that you have to work hard, and that's the only way to make money. You can work smart, you can delegate, and you don't have to feel guilty about it.
Now, how do you get people to release the guilt? I mean, it's almost become like a badge of courage to be the busiest person around. Mm-hmm. That's not always the most productive person. Okay, and don't ever confuse activity with achievement, right? How do you get people through that struggle of letting go of some things, learning to delegate, learning to actually enjoy their free time? And you mentioned the word happiness earlier. I don't ever use the word happiness because that's momentary. I use the word fulfillment. If you have a fulfilling career, it will sustain you whether you're happy in that moment or not. But how do you get people to actually let go of those guilt feelings of I'm not doing enough? How do you get them to learn to kind of enjoy their life, enjoy having the freedom to be with their children and their spouse more?
There are tools in NLP, and we have over, I would say, probably 100 tools of NLP. And one of the guilt specifically is one of the big 5 negative emotions that we work through. We call it quantum timeline therapy, QTT, quantum timeline therapy, where it helps you to release guilt, and then it future paces you to make sure that you don't bring those old negative. So you go to root cause of that guilt originally. You remove that root cause. You get all your learnings, because everything in your life happens for a reason. And you either learn and grow, or it's going to keep happening in your life. So what we do is we get those learnings, and then we apply them into your future you, so to speak, so you can move on and create change and break that pattern.
That is awesome. I have a question. Just as I was thinking about today, I started thinking, I kind of believe that children use NLP unconsciously. Example, when they're learning to walk, they fall, they're not afraid to get back up and try again, and they're going to fall again. No kid walks well the first time they try. They learn, they become proficient over time and time again, but fall again, right? But they don't stop. They're hardwired to learn to move. And obviously everyone's successful at it, because you can go to New York City and see thousands of people walking around. So I'm just thinking, would you agree with that statement or disagree? And we can talk about that. And I do want to talk about the 5, I think you call it 5 negative emotions.
Big 5, yeah.
But do you agree with that statement, that that's sort of a practical exam of unconsciously using NLP?
Yes, what we call it is modeling. What kids do is modeling. They see somebody doing it, right? And they are trying to do it as well, time over time over time. So in NLP, we would call it modeling, because if you put the kid in an environment, as we've seen, what is it called? The Mowgli, the cartoon where he lives with, the boy lives with wolves. And they work
Mowgli.
on.
Oh yeah, Mowgli.
Yes, he walks on his feet and hands because he's modeling what he sees.
Yes.
So if we apply NLP to that our kids in our human society, they are modeling adults because they see adults walking.
And to go back to an earlier point, as they age, they model abusive behaviors as well.
Unfortunately and sadly, yes. So that's why, you need to work harder on yourself than to teach your kids, because doesn't matter what you tell them, they're gonna model you. They're gonna model what they see. And that's why it's so important to be a good role model for your child.
That's right. I can remember my parents growing up, and I grew up in a crazy, violent, fear-filled home, and some of the things they would say and do, just I knew they were wrong. As a young child, I knew what they were doing was wrong. And somehow, call it by the grace of God, I fortunately did not continue those behaviors. I was able to not model that. So, when I had children, I knew, as we were talking about at lunch, well, I wish they gave you a manual, but they don't. But I knew what not to do. And the other stuff I can learn if I'm willing to go out and just do it. Talk to people that are good parents, ask them what they would do in these situations. Google is my best friend, and you probably know him, but then just go read articles by qualified people to talk about how to deal with child behavior and how to help them as a responsibility as a parent to develop into the best human being they can be. And I'm proud to say both my sons, who are 28 and 26, have solid character, and that's all I really ever wanted. I didn't care what they did with their lives career-wise, as long as they did it well. But I wanted them to have character, because character will get you through so many things.
Can I add something on that?
Absolutely.
What you mentioned, for you, applying NLP, if you talk about that, it was away from motivation. You knew how you didn't want to. So your motivator was away from. I see that, and I don't want that. So it's kind of like, people like, I don't want to be in debt, so to speak. That kind of thinking what I don't want and then run away. Some people are motivated by stick, some people are motivated by carrot. So I believe that in your ways, like, hey, I don't want to be like him, so I'll put all of my energy and effort to be different.
That's great. Yeah, I always got the stick. I never could reach the carrot. As I got older, the stick got bigger too. But I can laugh about it now, and everything's been forgiven. For that, I'm grateful, because unresolved anger, bitterness can destroy your lives. Let's talk about the other 5 negative emotions.
Anger, sadness, fear, shame, guilt.
Let's talk about shame. How do you work with someone who has? First of all, how do you recognize when someone is in NLP training with you? You're working with them to help them work on themselves. How do you recognize someone who may be feeling ashamed?
I can tell you that all of us at certain point of life felt shame in certain way. So when you actually work with NLP coach, you go through all of those 5. They're kind of like must-have, so to speak. There is no one without another one, because and there is an order which you go, and shame one of them, and you remove that. Once again, go into a root cause, and then applying those learnings from that particular event to all of the past events. And if some certain negative emotions are still in the past event, then you go to that particular event and so on. So, but we don't ask for those feelings. We just go through big 5 because we know that those are very important, and everybody at a certain point of life had them. And the beauty of NLP is that you don't have to know the story. If you want to share, feel free to. However, you don't have to. So, and that's the beauty of it, because some people, they are originally not quite comfortable to say it out loud.
Of course, especially if it's something shameful, right? Because they're afraid of the judgments of others. How do you create that safe environment you talked about earlier? You create a safe space where people will feel empowered to work on themselves, and yet be able to share things in front of a group of probably strangers they don't know.
It takes time to build rapport, first of all, through metaphors and through my own story. So that gives people the feeling, and being sincere, honestly, being there for them 100%, 110% in creating that safe environment and being there for them, doesn't matter what. So, and if you come with the pure thoughts, people can feel it and they will open up. I mean, I had one of the things that I was doing a business coaching, and the lady was stuck on procrastination. And it wasn't even procrastination, it was perfection and procrastination. She would procrastinate because it's not perfect. And I was like, well, I can use some NLP techniques to help her with that. Next day, next coaching session, we started working on it. And one of the first things that came out is like, well, when I go and think about it, the first thing I see is me being raped. I was like, whoa, how did we get from procrastination and perfectionism to being raped? And, that's the coaching, like you never know. But I was grateful that she felt safe to share with me, even in the business coaching setting, certain things. And of course, we worked through that. But yeah, it was a story about her mom that, she's never going to be good enough for her mom. And that's why she was doing everything perfectly. And her mom knew that she was getting abused. So it's crazy how, you can, work on certain things that, we all procrastinate in our life. We all at a certain point want it to be something done perfectly, ideally. And yet something that happened years and years, 30, 40 years ago, affecting her decision-making now.
Funny thing is, I read a book, one of the best books I've read in the last year, called Extraordinary Ordinary People. And it was written by Condoleezza Rice about her family growing up with her dad and her mom. She's an only child. And one of the things that she wrote about in that book was, she said, I'm a procrastinator. I've always been. I go, you're Secretary of State. You are a procrastinator? I mean, decisions you make that need to be made on a moment's notice can affect world dominoes, right? Our Secretary of State was a procrastinator. And yet she is, if you haven't read the book, I highly encourage you to read it. It is a very moving book. She wrote it so well, and she had a wonderful family. And she talked about conflicts they had, and she told the story of her mom and dad. But anyway, it was like, so yeah, everybody, even former provost of Stanford University, former Secretary of State,
absolutely
procrastinates. And I think that is one of the things that can, how many. I've often wondered, Irina, how many people have gone to the grave with wonderful ideas in their minds that they wanted to go do, but they were afraid to, or they just put it off too long. How many how many wonderful stories that we might see in the movies or in the books or in poetry, how many things have not been created because people were afraid to do it? It sounds like you're giving them the tools to free them from fear, from shame, from guilt, and others. That's wonderful work. Before I switch gears, is there anything else we need to know about NLP? That's a big question. I
Yes,
know.
I was like, is there anything else you need to know about NLP? I'll share just a little bit of my story, what made me a believer, because whatever I do, I try first myself. So I do not do anything. If I, teach people, coach people, business coaching, because I've been in business and I've made mistakes. I've learned, so I know what works, what doesn't work. And the same is for NLP, and what, seems like, people go to, like I mentioned, therapy, and I talk about it for years and it's still there. You kind of like start doubting, like, how can NLP just do it just like that, over a couple hour session. And for me, when I was at the business training and we were talking about sales, and I mentioned it to you earlier today during our lunch, that a lot of people have negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions around sales. They are afraid to pick up the phone, they're afraid of being rejected, they have some maybe negative memories when somebody would call their home and mom would pick up the phone and it was a telemarketer, so mom would slam the phone, and they have that, how dare they are to call me. And it created those negative emotions, negative memories around, phones, like how dare you to call me. So when they pick up the phone and try to call somebody and sell something, that voice in their head, how dare you to call them. So for me, what came up was a fear of rejection. And nobody likes to be rejected, to be honest, right? However, when we went to a root cause, it was me being rejected by my father. And that's something that I had a really hard time sharing before, is that I was raised without a father. So I was raised by a single mom. And they got divorced when I was about 5 or 6. And that was the last time I saw him. I haven't seen him since then. And my last memory of him is we lived in an apartment complex, and my mom asked me to take trash out. And we had a big dumpster outside, so I'm taking the trash and I'm going outside, and there are a lot of kids are playing. And I'm like putting the trash and I start playing with them. And we are playing around front door, and my father walks into the apartment complex. And he walks by me, looking at me without saying a word, and keep walking. And for me, I felt rejected. I mean, I stopped, I started crying, I ran home, I'm sobbing. Mom was like, what's going on? Are you hurt? I couldn't speak. But that was my last memory of my father. And I was rejected, obviously, by him, and I haven't seen him since then. So in that memories, that negative emotions transferred for whatever reason into sales, because I didn't want to be rejected. And we worked through that. I let that go, accepted, forgave, got my learnings, and moved on. Now I can freely talk about it, but it was eating me alive for many years. That's pretty much the only memory I have of my father, and that's not a very pleasant memory.
Sure.
So NLP is a very powerful tool, and it actually works with the root cause, and it can change your life for better. And everything is possible. So you are your only limit. In business, it comes down to time, people, and money. Those are 3 problems usually in business. But the biggest obstacle is actually you. Your beliefs, your mindset, your skill set. That's why when you work on yourself, your business is going to grow exponentially.
You're so dead on correct. Wow. So was it NLP that allowed you to forgive your father? Or had you done that before you discovered NLP?
That was NLP because I buried it. I mean, I never seen him. He never paid child support. So I'm kind of like, I don't have any emotions. Like, I'm good. This is a strange man for me. That was my perspective of my father, because it was buried and I didn't even want to admit it. That there was something there that actually, could potentially hurt me. And that's why for me it was, I didn't know because, like I said, it was buried. And NLP kind of removes that bandage and let it bleed out so I can actually work with that problem.
So freeing. Forgiveness, you've heard it say, and it's a little cliche, but it's true. Forgiveness is for you, not the person who offended you. They may not know. I don't know how your dad would not know, but they may not care. And that's a hard thing to accept. But I will tell you that my story is forgiving both of my parents. And I did it through practicing gratitude. I was able to eventually see them through a different prism, forgive them for their failings. But if I hadn't, I don't think it would have destroyed me. I think I was too strong for that. But it certainly would have prevented me from living fully, a fulfilling life, if you will, because that negative emotion, it's still in there unless you work through it. And as we have said here and talked about, self-work sucks. It absolutely, it is shit work. It just sucks. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. But it's not. It's not easy. But when you do it, it is so worthwhile when you're going through it. And then at the end, we only place value in what we've earned. And that includes working on ourselves. So, but it does suck. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
But I'm glad you did that and discovered that. There's a lot of layers there because you start thinking about it. And I don't know what it was like in Russian schools, but here you've got Parents' Day or whatever. You'd have like schools will have, especially in elementary level and pre-K and all, we'll have like Thanksgiving celebrations where grandparents and parents come, or you'll do something if you're in a recital at school or something, and both parents aren't there. And you see your friends, and both their parents aren't there. It is hurtful. It's one of those memories that's imprinted in your brain forever until and still there, but you finally forgive it, and it just changes your mind. It changes your brain. That is so powerful.
Absolutely. Being able to recall those memories, because we are not erasing those memories. We're just removing negative emotions from those memories. So you will still have them. However, you can go back and recall them. You can talk about them without having negative reaction and feelings.
Absolutely. That's wonderful work you're doing. I'll tell you one quick story. So I have a psychotherapist. I only see him a couple times a year now to make sure let's check in kind of. We sit in psychotherapy and we laugh, right? Because I find humor in everything. Early on in psychotherapy, I said to him, and I happened to find the right guy. He was the right guy to prod me, push me, gently nudge me toward where he saw I needed to go. But I said, David, I got a question. I'm really concerned about this because I know that for the great artists of our time, like the ones who produce the best acting performances, the best music written, it all comes from the painful side of a person's psyche. So if I get healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, am I not going to be funny anymore? Because that's really all I've got working for me, right? Is I've got a good sense of humor. I've got a lightning quick wit, which I developed from being in an abusive home. Am I not going to be funny anymore? He just started dying laughing. He goes, I think you'll be okay.
You'll be okay.
You'll be okay. So I want to talk about something. You are a practicing hypnotist. Tell me how I've been hypnotized a handful. I've hypnotized other people. In fact, I got college credit for hypnotizing a guy. I had him dancing like a chicken in front of the college class. It was great. But tell me how you use hypnosis to help people.
So I got certified as a hypnotherapist through NLP. It was a part of the NLP training, the NLP schools that I went through. So I never once again thought about it. I had those crazy thoughts like, what is hypnosis? People gonna make me do something, right? What I don't want to do. However, it's completely different. And I use self-hypnosis, or you can call it guided meditation. It's actually to help release negative emotions, because even during the day, I'm a human being. I'm still getting triggered by certain things, certain people. And so there is a program that I use that is called Brain Tap. And I use it as a self-hypnosis to release those negative emotions, or set a good day, or even help me to go to sleep. It's just how, because I'm that kind of person. I used to have a very hard time to go sleep because my brain would not stop working. And when I wake up in the morning, I felt like I've been in the gym for 3 hours straight doing weights or something, because I felt like even though I was sleeping, I was still working. And at a certain point, it gets really tough on you. It hits you. And so I was looking for a way, how can I turn off my brain without taking any medication, so to speak. And hypnosis was my way of helping me to turn it off. And it was very interesting because I brought that Brain Tap, its application on your phone, and actually headset with the glasses. And my husband tried it on. And I was like, well, how was it? He was like, whatever. I was like, okay. So then he goes to work, and he calls me from work. And he was like, did you change the password to the application of Brain Tap? And I was like, why? So he was using it at work every night to go to sleep. He
busted.
Exactly. Whatever. Because he is a Texan. He's not even American. I like to say he is a Texan. He's a redneck. And for him, I don't feel like you said it. It's like, what the hell is that? But he sees results, obviously, and he became a believer.
That's great. Secretly,
yeah. Like he didn't want to admit it, and then it busted.
Yeah, can't do that new age stuff you're talking about. What are your future plans?
What are my future plans? Oh, I have big plans, big goals, big dreams. I I really want to create a NLP school of business. I want to teach business owners how to apply NLP in their business, to work with their teams, to work on themselves, with themselves. And once again, I can do only so much. So create an actual school, create an actual system to have people teaching what I teach and spreading the word out to help people to change, improve their lives. So that's the big picture, is to actually being able to build a company that helps to distribute, to teach others in, locally, nationwide, and internationally.
Yeah. Technology has allowed us to reach people all over the world. Yes.
Absolutely.
And when you were a little girl, you wanted to be a
teacher. Yes, I did want to be a teacher, and I didn't know how, because I love money. I love the comforts that money provide. Mm-hmm. However, teachers, as we know, don't make much money. No. And that's why I got master's in business, and life brought me back to teaching without even, in a very gentle way, so to speak. Yeah. And I just realized that this is where my passion, this is what I love to do, and that's what I'm doing. And I think that's what's important, because I don't feel it like it's a job. I truly enjoy what I do because I'm passionate about it, and not a single day feels like like work.
That's awesome. And you found what fulfills you.
Absolutely. And the changes that it brings to people's life is it worth so much more than I could have ever imagined.
That's great. That is great. And I think we'll stop on a high note, because it's just been very rewarding and enriching for my life to listen to you. And we will post on the video your contact information. I love your Instagram handle, your_favorite_Russian. Yes. No ego in that one, I guess. And we'll have your email address, which is hello@motivaction.shop, motivation.shop. And then your website will, of course, www.motivaction.shop. And you can reach out to Irina there. So, again, thank you for sharing all of your story with us today. And you're doing wonderful work. And I encourage you to keep pushing on, keep going. That's great. And will your husband be embarrassed by these stories?
Oops.
Well, we're not editing that out, so.
Well, he'll be proud.
Of course he will. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of the Determined People podcast. Everybody struggles. Everybody has challenges. We procrastinate. We do things that all other humans do, and we beat ourselves up too much. I want to encourage you, if you are one of these people who may feel like you are repeating bad, past negative patterns that haven't served you well, they've not been edifying and enriching to your life, reach out to Irina. Contact her via email and let her at least just have a consultation and talk with you. If NLP is right for you, then it can only improve your life. And I encourage you to at least consider it. And with that, again, thank you, Irina Alexander. If you like the podcast, please go on iTunes and just give us 5 stars. That helps us get moved up in the rankings and helps people notice us. If you have an extra minute or so, drop us a short review. Now, if you don't like the podcast, don't give us a review. We're fine, okay? But I thank you for being a part of what we're doing, spreading encouragement, strength, and hope to a world that desperately needs it. We all need hope. I will be back tomorrow with another 1-minute inspirational thought. And until then, everyone, be well.